So get started. Hi everyone, my name is Shrey. I'm a language engineer, cursor ambassador, and senior AI engineer at a startup called V1, where I'm working on building a powerful AI agent with the help of cursor and LangGraph. So a little bit about my journey before I get started. So back in 2022, when ChatGPT was released, I was fascinated by it and started diving deep into large language models and started reading more about frameworks like BBAGI and RAG and all sort of things. So that got me into agent development, and then I was also using GitHub Copilot for a while to write code. And then I think Cursor was also released around I think April of 2023. That's when I started using Cursor and started sharing my workflows on LinkedIn and Twitter. And I think that's how I uh, got in touch with Cursor team and became the Cursor ambassador as well. So how can I help you guys? So I am working as a senior AI engineer where I'm working on building world's most advanced AI sales agent that helps people move the deals forward much faster. And for that specific, for building that agent, I'm using Cursor as my main IDE and LangGraph as my main coding framework. So today I'm going to talk about my personal workflow using Cursor combined with LangGraph. So I'm going to be talking about how I use Cursor and what are the power features of Cursor that can really help you move really fast. And so yeah, without spending much time here, I'm just gonna go straight into Cursor and we're gonna start building something. So yeah, so first things first, I think I like to go over the settings first because if you don't get the settings right, you might not get the full leverage out of Cursor. Given the interest of time, I want to show a live demo of building an app as well. So I'm gonna try to do my best to go over all the important settings as I can. So the first things that I like to do is if you are using VS Code or any other ID, just input your settings from here. It's not that important here. Nothing else I would change here. Or unless you want to use agent mode and stuff, then you might have like. But now it's all privacy mode, so it does not matter. All right, so you can pick your default mode here. Like to use agent. If you're working on a specific development pattern, then I think you can also use your own custom mode. Like I have LangGraph dev here. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but you can add your own custom mode and use it as default as well if you want, depending on your preference. I like to have this completion sound on so that if I'm vibe coding or if I'm assigning a task to the agent, then I think you can just turn this on and be notified whenever the agent is done doing its thing. Um, always have these custom modes enabled. I think this is one of the secret weapons that you can have in your cursor because that will allow you to kind of tailor cursor's agent towards your own workflow and your own framework or your own kind of code base. So this is really powerful. Apart from that, all these tools are pretty standard. I like to have this auto fix length so that it automatically fixes the lengths. Apart from that, I think yeah, you can have all these settings as default. I don't think we need to change much here. Tabs is also pretty standard. Just enable everything here if you can. Don't think there's much here in the models. You can have your own API keys if you run into cursor's rate limits, which I sometimes do when I hit the rate limits. I'm likely not going to have enough time to talk about background agents, so I'm going to skip this part. I think this is one of the most important things in Cursor, or what I really like about Cursor. As you can see, I have quite a few MCP servers here that allow me to do a lot of things. So if I'm building a full stack app, I need Supabase. If I'm building a front end specifically, I would turn on ShatCN. 7 is a really good MCP server that helps you bring in the context about the latest documentation for a specific library. So let's say if you're working with Cloud 4 or some other model, it's not trained on Tailwind 4. It might hallucinate some things when you're working with Tailwind 4. But context 7, if you have a rule that says pull in the context for Tailwind 4 from context 7, it's going to use the context 7 tool to actually bring in the details about Tailwind 4. So you can address hallucinations like that using that specific MCP tool. sequential thinking, brief search, and fetch are my standard. I always have these tools enabled. If I want the agent to also test the front end for me, you can enable this playwright tool, and as you can see, it's going to load the tools in a second. I have 32 tools enabled in this tool, so that's going to basically interact with the browser directly. So I use this MCP server whenever I want to test the front end. Browser tools allow the agent to actually inspect the console logs and the network of the browser. So I think that's really helpful when you want to use the agent to automatically debug for you, so you don't have to copy and paste things back and forth. Browser use is a bit advanced. It can actually use your entire browser like OpenAce operator. So cursor can also act as an operator if you actually enable this tool. So there's a lot of tools that can do those things for you. And these are just general purpose MCP servers that are not related to coding, but I'm just using them to kind of stay updated with the news on LinkedIn and Twitter. So yeah, so that's about the tools. I think these are very, very important. And as you have noticed that I've not enabled everything, because the reason is if you enable all the tools, for example, if I enable ChatCN, Contact 7, Zapier, right? All of these tools actually have some context, right? So for example, if I ask here, what tools do you have access to? Provide all details with parameters. So right now it has access to about like this is 28, 23, I think is 59 tools. This is way too much. And when you enable these tools, it actually fills in the model's context window and actually might reduce the performance of your actual coding task if you have way too many tools enabled. So that's why when I'm working on a specific task, either I use a custom mode that has only specific tools enabled, or I manually come here and enable the tool depending on the task that I'm taking on. That way my context window stays limited and I can still get all the context window from the model. So yeah, as you can see, it's listing every single thing, right? And it's not even listing the description of the tools. It's actually really, really lengthy, and we're probably filling out about 30,000 tokens just from these tools. Anyway, I'm gonna move on from here now. The most important part of working with cursor is actually user rules. So you need to know how to basically provide right context to the agent. It's actually now there's a term called context engineering. So I think that's what cursor is best at. Cursor can beat Cloud Code or any other coding provider if you use the tools right, because no other tool can give you the granularity that Cursor does in terms of providing the rules. So you can have your own user rules here. I'm not having that right now because of my demo. I removed all the tools here, all the rules here, because it's probably gonna impact the demo, but you can have your user rules, project rules. So I'm going to talk a little bit about project rules here. So I can say a custom rule here. So here, as you can see, that there is an option to apply manually, apply intelligently, or apply to specific files. So the difference between this is when you say always apply, this is going to always apply no matter what. So every single time I send a message, something like hi, behind the scene, it would have also said like this is a user rule that you would apply. Along with how you're also sending the rule here that says make the conversations shorter and always reply. So this is Cursor's way of showing how content engineering works. As you can see, this rule was automatically applied and you see the emoji in the end, right? So that's what happens when you click on always apply. Intelligently means that you will provide a description here on when to apply that specific rule. When, for example, I could say when the user says hi, happy vibe coding. So now, again, I'm going to click on any chat and this is apply intelligently. So if I say hi, it should technically say happy vibe coding. Now it's saying that, right? So which means that you can have a condition in your code base that can apply whenever you are trying to do certain tasks. It can be like when you are working on a front end development, and if you want to like, if you tell the agent, hey, can you make this design more beautiful, you can have an entire workflow that gets applied behind the scene when you say make it beautiful, right? So you can kind of do the context engineering right there in the right manner when you do it like that. upload a specific file. So I can just say, like, it's already giving me some examples here. So you can just say star.py, and then whenever you're working on a file with a file that ends with this extension, it's going to apply this rule to that specific file. And manually is like when you actually manually go here and apply the rule from the rule section. So that's how you can basically apply the rule manually. All right, so that's how the rules can basically really impact your workflow. Now, many of you might not know how to write the rules. So there is actually a cursor rules agent that I used to use when I was starting out, agent one. So I could just say, I think there's already an example here, so I'm just gonna pick that. So just tell it whatever you're building, and it's gonna give you the cursor rule for that specific. So I think this can be your global cursor rule that you can apply, that you can always apply for that specific code base. You'll obviously need to like make this your own and kind of change it depending on your needs. But this is a good way to get started. After that, there is also a website called cursor.directory. So if you go on rules here, you can actually pick your framework that you're working on, kind of get the standard rules depending on your own framework. I think there's also an extension. I might not have it in this machine, but let me see. I don't think. Yeah, this is the one. So you can just install this extension as well. And then I can just say cursor rules manager search and add rules. And now I can just say Next.js. I want a rule for Next.js, React, TypeScript, and whatever your framework is. You can pick the one, and now you have a cursor rule for the specific framework right inside your IDE. You don't even have to leave your IDE to get the rules. So that's how you can get started, and then you can iterate on this rule to kind of make it your own, and then go from there. I want any rule right now because of my custom mode for the demo. All right, so that's about, I think, the major settings that I wanted to talk. Yeah, I think this is also a very important one. If you connect your GitHub, it's also gonna index all of your PR so that cursor knows about all the changes that are going on with your code base. So it knows like if there's a bug that was introduced, it can know about that based on your previous PRs. So it can look at those things and kind of also help you find bugs and stuff depending on what you're trying to do. Then yeah, I think the docs is very important. I just got this machine. It's very new, so I don't have any docs index in this one. But ideally, for example, let's say I want to work with Cohere and I want to, I don't know about this doc. So I can just come here and add that doc here, and it's going to start indexing, right? So now that doc is going to be indexed and available to me to use. So now I can basically probably work to use the max model here, but so I can come here and click on docs here, and that doc is going to be available for me. They also give you some docs pre-built, so you can use this depending on what you're trying to do. All right. Yeah, so I think docs is very, very important to give the right context. But like I said, like context 7 MCP has replaced this for me because I could just have a rule that says whenever you're working with Cohere, just pull the context from context 7. So I can just pull in the docs from there directly without actually putting the docs here. Okay, so that's one way to do it. And then yeah, I have the background agent enabled and notepads enabled as well. Notepads is basically just a quick way to, I don't know why notepads are not showing up here. Anyway, yeah, so that's about it. And then I think I'm just quickly going to go through all the settings here. So you can use this code to basically give it context of specific functions instead of files. So you can use this code for that. Files and folders is basically when you want to give it context of entire files or folders. Git is a really important one because you can actually give it your current branch diff or your current commit diffs or current working changes. This is especially helpful when you're working with cursor and you broke something and you have no clue what you broke. So you can actually give it your current commit changes, so your current working changes, and it should tell you the why that bug is happening and find the root cause for you. Or if it's in the branch, then you can also just compare that with the main branch and then find the bug for you. Or you can also use this to actually create pull requests for you. So you can actually combine this with Jira or Linear MCP, and actually it can talk to Jira, get the ticket, right, and then create the branch for you on your Git. Uh, Based on that, we will start implementing that for you as well. In the end, create a PR for you as well and update the PR as well, depending on what you're trying to do. But this is really powerful. Git is really, really powerful integration. I personally don't use past sets a lot because I like to work in a specific limited context window. But if you think that you need to get some context from the past sets, you can use this. I normally just summarize the past sets in the end in a markdown and then just use that as context instead of referring it from here. But yeah, rules is when you want to bring a specific rule in, like I showed earlier. And then I think if you have some context in the terminals, you can actually give it the context of the terminal. You'll also find all the lint errors from here. At web is basically when you want to search the web for information. And recent changes is also similar to Git current changes. I think people were not understanding the Git commit. That's why they had to specifically add recent changes here. But it's the same thing. All right. So
Shrey, we're almost at time. There's a few questions here if you want to take them on.
yeah,
Yeah, there's one that's here. I'll show it on stream as well. But once you develop code, how can you apply automated testing on each version of your code?
once I develop code, yeah. So basically, you can have a rule that says, for example, use the playwright, right? And you can say apply intelligently. So you can just say whenever the user asks for testing, or if a feature is done, then you can say use playwright and kind of put what your instructions for testing are for the specific application, and it can do that for you. So like I mentioned earlier in the tool section, like you can use this database and I think playwright tool to actually have it talk to your front end directly. And I think this another MCP that I talked about, browser tools. I can give links to all this if people need, but this will allow the agent to holistically see all the network requests and all of the console logs, and also just talk to the browser directly. They will allow the agent to talk to the front end and database and the browser and test it just like a tester does.
Perfect. Awesome. I think, yeah, thank you so much for the presentation. I learned a bunch of stuff. I didn't know about the context 7, and I didn't know about the rules. I'm sorry, the commit diff that you showed here. So I appreciate that.